United Senator John McCain, uncut and on the record. Senator, nice to see you, sir.
Thanks, Greta. Good to be with you again.
All right, I have a letter here dated July 8th to President Obama, signed by you and Senator Kyle, and you're inviting him to the border. First of all, you heard back.
No, we haven't. We haven't gotten a response yet, and I don't know that we will. But you know, the point is, this has become an issue that has really affected the entire United States. It's dominated a lot of the news. And if the federal government is going to spend a lot of the taxpayers' money suing the state of Arizona after we are doing what the federal government has failed to do, then at least the president should come down and look at the situation. And we'd love to escort him down there. Now, it's a little hot, but I think it's important that the president, who travels a lot, could come down and just take a few hours.
All right, what percentage of the decision to sue Arizona is conviction that it's the right thing to do you think, and what percentage is politics?
Well, I can only conjecture because I'm not brought into their deliberations, but more and more I am convinced that this is all about solidifying the Hispanic vote. It's just not a reasonable lawsuit to sue a state for doing what the federal government should have been doing. It doesn't make any sense. And the fact is that I think that this lawsuit will not stand in court, but it may satisfy a portion of the president's political base.
In terms of inviting the president to come to Arizona, what specifically do you want him to see that he hasn't seen?
I want him to see parts of the fence that are not completed. I want him to see areas where there is frequent crossing. I want him to see where the drug smugglers are, you can see them across the border, watching everything that goes on our side of the border, so that they can take their human beings that they are smuggling, who they mistreat terribly, and their drugs across our border. I want him to meet with the ranchers in the southern part of our state that are afraid to leave their homes even, and afraid to take their children to the bus stop. And I want to see him to see the signs that our government has put up in the southern part of our state that says, warning, you are in a human smuggling and drug smuggling area, and tells them to take certain precautions. People shouldn't have to live that way. I want them to see all that.
All right, now we're going to travel tomorrow with the Secretary of Homeland Security, your former governor, Janet Napolitano, to Texas. But let me ask you this. How is the Texas border, or is it different? If the president went to the Texas border, would he say the same thing as if he went to the Tucson sector border of your state? Is it different in any way?
Well, there have been more improvements in other parts, and I don't deny that there have been improvements in border security, but it has not kept up with the level of violence which has transpired on the other side of the border. Well, he would, I think in Texas they would see that there are some areas where they have made significant improvements. If he came to Arizona, he would see the area across from Mexico where just 12 miles south of Nogales, Arizona, in the last week or so, 21 Mexican citizens were murdered, where the Nogales police chief, Nogales, Arizona police chief, has been threatened that they will murder his policemen if they interfere with the drug cartels. That's the kind of thing I want him to see. The Sinaloa drug cartel across the Arizona border is the most powerful and the most vicious, headed by a guy named Guzman.
Why do you think he won't go to Arizona? I know he's got a lot on his plate, he's a very busy man, every president is, but why do you think he won't accept this invitation? And Governor Brewer's been pounding him to come down as well. She invited him too, but why won't he go?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but clearly if he is using the full weight of his government to sue the state of Arizona over a situation that his Justice Department and he find unacceptable, then I think he at least owes it to the citizens of Arizona to come and see what it's all about. And I think he may change his opinion.
Well, a lot of American people outside of Arizona support what Arizona is doing. Do you think that will have, do polls or the people's enthusiasm for any law, does that have any impact?
I don't know, because again, there is a strong suspicion on my part that this is a political move as much as it is any other. But it's heartening to me that the majority of the American people, 60, 70, 80%, depending on how you ask the question, support what we're trying to do in the state of Arizona and get our border secured, and the action that the state of Arizona took.
What's sort of interesting is that members of the Democratic Party in your state, in Congress, are they're in favor of the law, but they are opposed to the federal government filing suit, as they've done.
Well, there's a couple, three, who have supported what the law that was passed in Arizona. There's a couple others that oppose to it. There's one member of Congress who has incredibly advocated a boycott of his own state, which obviously would hurt all of our citizens, including 30% of them who are Hispanics.
You know what I don't understand, though, is that you send a letter to the president, and other members of Congress will send letters to the president, and is that everyone always sends letters, and I never hear that anyone gets an answer. Do you ever get answers out of any of your letters?
Oh yeah, sometimes we do.
Ever on the border issue?
No, we really haven't gotten much response. I'm on the Homeland Security Committee, and I've had a chance to question the Secretary. I've known her for a long period of time. I think the Secretary of Homeland Security is confirming that old adage on this issue that it's not where you stand, it's where you sit.
Why do you think she's going to Texas and not Arizona tomorrow?
I do not know, and since you're going to be accompanying her, I'm sure that'll be one of the questions you ask.
Well, I'm sort of curious why, because it is her home state, and she does know, and she knows the problem a lot better than certainly I do, that she could probably show us around, but she's chosen Texas. Maybe there's another reason. I don't know.
Maybe not, but if she did, she would see again wildlife refuges on the border have been really trashed, that there is a very, very serious problem with the issue of human smuggling and the human rights abuses that take place when these people are taken to a drop house, crammed into one or two rooms. So in Phoenix, there was one drop house, had 50 people crammed inside. I'm wondering where the human rights activists are on this issue, because they should want the border secured. So this terrible abuse of human rights that are inflicted on these people by the human smugglers, human traffickers, is stopped.
Another topic, you just recently came back from Afghanistan. The president has a timeline. You oppose a timeline for withdrawal. Why?
Well, in warfare, if you tell the enemy when you're leaving, they'll just wait you out. That's one of the fundamentals. We were down in Kandahar at a checkpoint outside of Kandahar, talked to an Afghan police chief who had been brought in, whose reputation was not one of corruption. And we asked him, and he said, yes, the Taliban are saying that you're leaving, and that when you leave, they'll cut off our heads if we cooperate. And, I mean, it's reached down to the level of police chiefs in Afghanistan, and it has caused the Pakistanis to act in a way that they may be accommodating. It has caused President Karzai to doubt our tenacity and our commitment, and so it has unsettled the entire region. All the president has to do is say, this withdrawal will be conditions-based, conditions on the ground. We know that things are not as progressing as quickly as we had wanted them to, and so that's all the president has to say.
Next, more with Senator McCain.